Hello friends, welcome back to my another YouTube video, and the topic for today is brain. Since we have already done with central nervous system part 1 where we have seen the division of the central nervous system, we are done with the central nervous system description and the peripheral nervous system description. So the link for the same I'll put in the description box, so it is easy for you to go through that video also. So before starting this video, make sure you watch that video once and then proceed with this video. So today we are going to discuss about our brain. Now, here is the division of the brain on the screen. What you see is the division of the screen. So the brain is divided into three parts: prosencephalon, mesencephalon, and rhombencephalon. The another name for which is prosencephalon is known as forebrain, mesencephalon midbrain, rhombencephalon hindbrain, and the division of prosencephalon is telencephalon, which is known as a cerebrum also, and the diencephalon. The diencephalon is further divided into thalamus, hypothalamus, metathalamus, subthalamus, and the telencephalon is divided into cerebral hemispheres, basal ganglia, hippocampus, amygdaloid nucleus. Coming to the rhombencephalon, that is our hindbrain, divided into two parts. First is medulla oblongata and the metencephalon. Metencephalon consists of pons and cerebellum and not cerebrum. So here is cerebellum, here is cerebrum. Cerebrum is a part of forebrain. Cerebellum is a part of hindbrain. Do not forget this thing. And the another name of medulla oblongata is myelencephalon. So this is just a basic which we have already studied in our 12th standard and during our NEET examination. It is just a recap of whatever we have learned and the division of the brain. Coming to the detailed part, first the basic feature of a brain, that it is situated in the cranial box. We have already discussed that the bones in the cranial box is made up of 6, that is 1 frontal, 2 parietal, 2 temporal, and 1 occipital bones. So when we talk about the weight of an adult man brain is 1400 grams and the woman is 1250 grams. So it's just data, it may vary from books to books. So just consider this one is as ideal, since I have found this data in maximum books. So I've thought to put this here. Then the brain continue with the spinal cord, like as we say that the brain and the spinal cord are a part of central nervous system, right? So both of them is connected with some structure, and that structure is known as the foramen magnum. This is a main MCQ that is coming like approx 2 times in the NEET examination. So it is important. So just remember this thing. Coming to the brain, as we have already said that the brain is surrounded by a layer, a protective layer, as same as the spinal cord also. So that layer is termed as meninges in the neurophysiology or the neuroanatomy. So the three meninges of the brain is dura mater, which is located outer side, arachnoid matter, that is the middle portion, and the pia mater, that is inner portion. Now there are some spaces that are present between these three layers. Between dura and arachnoid, there is subdural space that is filled with the serous fluid, and the pia mater, that is the inner, and the arachnoid matter between middle and inner is the subarachnoid space that is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. So you can learn like this, between dura matter and arachnoid there is subdural space, and there is arachnoid and the pia matter there is subarachnoid space. Coming now, let's discuss what is this dura matters are. So the dura matter is our outer layer, as we have already discussed. It is thick and non-elastic. It is made up of collagen fibers. So dura mater is the outermost layer, right? So it is the only layer, or I can say that it is the layer that is attached to the, like this is the dura mater. Dura mater is attached to the layer of our cranium. So no epidural space is present. So between cranium and dura mater, there is no epidural space. So this dura mater has a two layers for that is highly vascular. Why it is highly vascular? Because it is made up of two layers, and its main function is to carry blood from brain towards the heart. Therefore, it is vascular. Okay, so it has two layers, as I've already said, that is endosteal layer outer and the inner is meningeal layer inner. And basically these two layers are always fused together, but there are some exception is like that there are some parts in a brain where they do not fuse. They do not fuse, and that part is known as cranial venous sinuses. It is a space where they do not fuse. So it is just an exception that you need to remember. Like these both layer get fused overall, but at some point there, or like at a point of cranial venous sinus, it do not fuse together. So it is kept in an exception point of view. Then coming to the arachnoid matter is thin and delicate, and it is made up of connective tissue. It is found only in the mammal. It's a characteristic of only in member. Here you can see it is an arachnoid matter present between dura mater and the pia mater. Since we have already see that there is some cranial venous sinus thing, when it happens, it has happened when these two layers do not fuse together. So in the arachnoid part, when these two layers do not fuse, they form the arachnoid villi, and the function of these villi is to reabsorb the cerebrospinal fluid from the subarachnoid space and pour them into the cranial venous sinus. So on the the arachnoid space, like in cranial venous sinus, uh, it appears like a finger-like projections or a villi-like projections, and we termed it as the arachnoid villi. And the function of this villi is to reabsorb CSF from subarachnoid space, and then it after reabsorbing it from subarachnoid space, it directly pours into the cranial venous sinus. So this much only we need to learn in this part. So here is our dural sinus that we have seen. Here is our dura mater, that is our outermost layer. We have seen the arachnoid matter. Now coming to the pia mater. What is this pia mater is all about? Pia mater is transparent membrane. So it might come in the MCQ that amongst which matter the membrane is transparent. So our answer is pia mater. It is highly vascular, and the arachnoid matter is non-vascular. So this may come in the MCQ. Then it is firmly adhered to the brain. Pia matter and the arachnoid layer at some places fuses together to form the leptomeninges. So there are some point where we see this fusion of two layers, the endosteal and the meningeal layer, that forms cranial venous sinus. And similarly, when the pia mater and the arachnoid mater fuses, it forms the leptomeninges. This thing we broadly see in neuroanatomy, and so it is not more concerned with the neurophysiology, but I have put this point so that you can clear your basic here itself. Coming to the division, first division is prosencephalon, that is our forebrain. Now, forebrain consists of two parts, that is telencephalon. So, the telencephalon, let's discuss about telencephalon first. It is first in the medulla part of the brain, comes as an MCQ. Largest part of the brain might comes in the MCQ. It has two cerebral hemispheres that are connected by the corpus callosum, which is the largest commissure of the brain. It might come in the MCQ, and we have already studied it also. If we have two hemispheres, then the hemispheres are separated by the longitudinal fissure, or it is also known as the medial fissure. which is projectus flex cerebri. So anterior part of the corpus callosum is called the genu. Here you see genu of the corpus callosum. So it is the anterior, somewhat like truncated part of the corpus callosum. Okay. Now coming to posterior truncated part is called splenium. So here we see here this posterior part is known as splenium and the interior part is known as genu of corpus callosum. Now moving forward, an oblique band is formed on this oblique band is formed by a body of corpus callosum and it is towards the genu, so it is known as the fornix. This like we have a ventricles in our cerebrum and that is covered by a thin membrane that is known as a septum lucidium. So septum pellucidum covers this ventricles, that is fourth ventricle and the third ventricle part completely. Then we have a cortex. Cortex consists of the gray matter and the gray matter consists of, see there we have a sulcuses and we have a gyrices, and these sulcuses and gyrices basically increases the surface area of the cortex. Then the within the hemisphere there is a white matter which contains several masses of the gray matter, that is basal ganglia, and the nucleus is just a basic thing. Coming to this function, as we already know, the function of the cerebrum is to concern with the voluntary movements, knowledge, memory, speech, thinking, and it also regulates different parts of the brain. So cerebrum is one of the major part of and most important part of the brain since it controls all our voluntary actions. So here I have put all the functions of the cerebrum. Moving forward, second part is the diencephalon. Diencephalon is the posterior part of the forebrain. Then it is covered by cerebrum. We have already seen in the previous slide. It consists of thalamus, hypothalamus, and epithalamus. Is epithalamus, the only thing which we need to remember is control our sexual activity. Now, what is this thalamus and hypothalamus? Just study superficially. The thalamus, it is the upper lateral wall of the diencephalon. Then thalamus forms 80% part of the diencephalon, which this point we have already studied in our 12th standard, that is it acts as the relay center, acts as the limbic system or the limbic part. It acts as the limbic part except the olfactory senses. It receives all the sensory impulses from all part of the body and the impulses are sent to the cerebral cortex. So this is basically you need to learn only this, that is a relay center. Coming to the hypothalamus, hypothalamus is known as the master gland and not the pituitary gland. It forms a lower lateral wall, whereas the thalamus forms the upper lateral wall of the diencephalon. Then in this, the pituitary gland is attached to the hypothalamus, where in the middle part, then here is the point. Then when we talk about the sensory part, like when we study about the sense organs. So when we study about an eye, there we come to know that there is something called as optic chiasma, where the crossing of the fibers takes place. And when this optic chiasma gets damaged, the person becomes blind. So the hypothalamus is concerned with that the structure is found on the anterior surface of the hypothalamus, that is optic chiasma, and due to the defects of the optic chiasma or the damage to the nerves coming or going to the optic chiasma, the person become a blind. So it becomes a clinical over here. Coming to the functions, it is thermoregulation, behavior, and emotional center. Endocrine control is with the hypothalamus, biological clock system, our sleeping cycle and everything. Then it controls our autonomic nervous system, our daily routine like thirst, sleep, and hunger, as I say already. And it also regulates the hormones. So hypothalamus is concerned with the activity of the endocrine gland. In the beginning, also we just studied that how central nervous system is concerned with the endocrine system. So here is the evidence of that. How, like the hypothalamus, that is a part of the central nervous system, is concerned with the endocrine glands in regulating the hormones. Coming to the midbrain is very small and contracted part of the brain. As we say that the midbrain connects our forebrain with the hindbrain. Anterior part of the midbrain contains two longitudinal myelinated nerve fibers that are known as the peduncules, called cerebral peduncules or the crus cerebri. This is we already studied. On the we have few optic lobes, or we called it as a collicula. Here you see we have a superior collicula, we have an inferior collicula, two superior collicula we have, and two inferior collicula we have. Now the narrow cavity of the midbrain. In the narrow cavity, we have a cerebral arcuate which connects the third and the fourth ventricle of the brain. So it might come in the MCQ. Coming to its function, the four optic lobes, which we have already discussed as the superior colliculus and the inferior colliculus, are present. Therefore, the function of superior and inferior is superior optic lobes are the main center of pupillary right reflex. We learn this thing when we talk about the reflex actions of the eye. In that we'll see how this superior colliculus work. Till now, just study that it is concerned with pupillary light reflexes, and the inferior optic lobes are concerned with the sound reflexes. So this much in the midbrain you need to memorize. Coming to the hindbrain has a three parts: pons, cerebellum, and the medulla oblongata. Like it has hindbrain is concerned with three parts. So pons, it is a spherical projection. Here you can say it is somewhat a spherical projection. Where it is situated like below the midbrain and upper to the medulla oblongata. Here you see we have medulla oblongata, and here we have a midbrain. So it is basically a sandwich between the medulla oblongata and the midbrain. It has many transverse and longitudinal nerve fibers. When we talk about the tracts, we see what these nerve fibers, the transverse and the longitudinal nerve fibers are. It is connected with the cerebellum. Actually, cerebellum is very important because it is basically a checkpoint of all the information which we receive from the spinal cord or the brain. So it is just a check box so that we cannot do the reflexes go in a very systematic way. So that's why it is pointed here that the transverse nerve fibers connected with the cerebellum, longitudinal nerve fibers connect cerebrum to medulla oblongata. 2 points to remember: transverse nerve fibers connected with cerebellum, longitudinal fibers connect cerebrum to medulla oblongata. This thing we see when we talk about the tracks. There you broadly see how they are correlated with each other. The function, it is basically regulates our breathing through our pneumotaxic centers. Coming to our cerebellum now. Second part is cerebellum. Cerebellum is made up of 5 lobes: 2 lateral lobes, 1 vermis, and 2 follicular lobes or follicular nodular lobes. Both lateral lobes become enlarged and spherical in shape. Lateral lobes become spherical in shape. Lateral lobe of the cerebellum is known as the cerebellar hemisphere. There are 3 cerebral peduncles. The 3 cerebral peduncles are superior cerebellar peduncles that attaches with the midbrain, middle cerebellar peduncle that is attached with the pons, and the inferior that is attached with the medulla. So as I've already said, that cerebellum is the check center of our brain. So therefore, it has 3 peduncles, and just learn which Cadendal, which part of a brain is concerned. So with superior, it attaches with midbrain, the middle attaches with pons, and the inferior attaches with the medulla oblongata. Coming to its function, everyone knows that the cerebellum is basically concerned with the body posture, tone, and balance. Similarly, when the person is doing so, he or she is unable to walk properly. That is because a cerebellum is affected. Then it is related to a skillful voluntary movements. And last in panel is the medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata is the conical in shape, whereas pon is spherical in shape. And the cerebellum it consists of the lobe. So just remember these. Medulla oblongata is conical in shape. It connects the pons superiorly and the spinal cord inferiorly. Okay, whereas in a pons, it is medulla oblongata on the upper side, medulla oblongata and the midbrain. Midbrain at below and the medulla oblongata on the upper side. Coming to it is concerned with the respiratory, cardiovascular, and vomiting centers. Then vagus nerve originates from here, so therefore medulla oblongata is concerned with vagus nerve. And when we study about the tracts, there we see how much important this vagus nerve is. When we talk about ascending tracts, descending tracts, we have many nucleuses over there. We'll see how that vagus nerve basically works. Then most of the sensory and motor nerves crosses at the medulla, and therefore the right hemisphere controls the left and the left controls the right. So these all we see basically in when we talk about the tracts. And till now, just on a superficial basis, just go through these points, that is sufficient for the point of view of physiology. When we talk about the track, that ascending, descending, then we'll see these all in a broad basis, how they. So that's all from my side on this topic. It's just a quick revision video of our brain. So guys, I hope you like the content of my video. If you like it, do like, share, subscribe, follow, and yeah, turn on the bell icon so that you get the notification whenever I upload any video. So guys, till then, bye, take care and study well.